Study high performers long enough and you'll start to notice a pattern. The best leaders aren't just good at managing others. First and foremost, they are exceptional at managing and leading themselves. They learned along the way that self-leadership is a competitive advantage, and it's one that allows them to succeed both personally and professionally on a consistent basis. You see, self-leadership melts away the challenges that often get in our way. And that matters now more than ever, because the world isn't just evolving, it's accelerating. And challenges are coming at us faster and more furiously than ever before. Things are changing at an insane speed. And even if you yourself don't change, your industry will and your role will. In fact, the World Economic Forum reported that 44% of today's essential work skills are expected to be different just 5 years from now. And McKinsey & Company named self-leadership as one of the core 4 skills that will be needed going forward. But do you know how to truly put self-leadership to work for you? I'm Laura Miner, a board-certified leadership coach, and this channel is dedicated to helping you fuel your success with the science of self-leadership. Because let's face it, not everyone has access to leadership coaching. But if you hit subscribe, you, my friend, will get coach-led support like this through video every single week, so you can learn how to lead yourself more effectively and live life by design instead of by default. Now, if you're unfamiliar, self-leadership is the practice of intentionally influencing your own thoughts, feelings, and actions to achieve your goals and objectives. It's about taking total ownership and developing the uniquely human skill of self-awareness so you can see what others can't and propel yourself forward. Because in a world where AI and automation are changing every job, self-leadership is that competitive advantage that sets you apart. It equips you to navigate uncertainty, turn feedback into stepping stones, and to lead with influence, whether you have a fancy title or not. So let's break down 3 self-leadership strategies that I coach my one-on-one clients through so you can also get the self-leadership edge. Strategy number 1, lead your thinking. A critical aspect of self-leadership is learning to lead your own thoughts instead of letting them lead you. But how do you know the difference? How do you know when you're leading your thoughts or when you're being led by them? It all starts with self-awareness. Now, in my coaching experience, a lot of people come in thinking they're more self-aware than they actually are. It's a bit of a common blind spot. In fact, research from organizational psychologist Tasha Eurich, she showed that while roughly 95% of people believe they are self-aware, only around 10 to 15% actually are. That gap between who we think we are and how we actually show up, that gap is where momentum stalls, careers plateau, and confidence starts to evaporate. So closing this gap is really important. And luckily, there is a simple framework to help you do so. I want you to think about a recent action you took. Maybe it's the words you used in a conversation. Speaking is an action, as an example. Or perhaps a situation where you reacted instead of responded, and maybe your reaction wasn't how you ideally want to show up. So think about that action and then grab a piece of paper or open up your favorite notes app. We're going to step through the thoughts that led to that action and reflect on whether you were leading those thoughts or being led by them. So at the top of your page and in one sentence, describe what you did. What was the action? And don't include a story here. I just want you to be factual. I snapped at my colleague. I avoided sending the proposal. Just a simple factual statement. Then underneath that, write what was happening right before you took that action. Where were you? Who was involved? What triggered the action? What was happening in the moment before? So get those thoughts on paper, then reread them and ask yourself, what was the main thought running through your mind in that moment? And if it isn't immediately obvious, then finish this statement. In that moment, I told myself, and write whatever comes up for you. Now, and this is where you're actively building your self-awareness muscle. It's time to ask yourself, was that thought a fact? In other words, is it something you can prove? Was it an interpretation, meaning you added something that altered its meaning? Or was it a prediction where you made assumptions that then shaped your actions? Most people are shocked at how often they are living out of interpretations and predictions without even realizing it. And here's the thing, predictions and interpretations, they have a cost. They can cost you clarity, confidence, time, connection, opportunity. So take a minute to reflect here on if there was a cost to you with the action you took. Now, read back through everything you just captured and ask yourself, were you leading your thoughts or were your thoughts leading you? And if they were leading you, write down one thing, just one thing you could have done differently to shift the equation. Could you have asked more questions? Maybe slowed down a bit? What could you have done to lead your thinking better? Because when you lead your thinking, your subsequent actions change for the good. All right, actions. This brings us to strategy number 2, become the architect of your actions. Because once you start leading your thinking, the next challenge becomes, can you translate that awareness into intentional and consistent action? And this is where self-leadership moves from insight to impact. Because the truth is, even when you have clarity around what you need to do, autopilot often kicks in and we default to habits that are known and easy, even though they may not be supportive. So this strategy is about paying attention to your default responses so you can become the architect of your actions. And it's a simple strategy, but don't let the simplicity fool you, because this is really powerful when you put it into action. So I want you to think about a situation that regularly shows up in your life. Not a one-off isolated incident, but an actual pattern. Maybe it revolves around consistently struggling with receiving feedback, or anxiety around necessary but difficult conversations, or maybe you perpetually feel behind or under pressure. And once you've named the pattern, I want you to make a list of the actions you typically default to in that situation. Do you shove your head in the sand and avoid it? Do you overthink it and get trapped by analysis paralysis? I don't know. Do you push harder, go quiet, try to please everyone, distract yourself with creative procrastination methods? Whatever it is, write it down. This is your default action pattern. And it's important to realize your default actions are generally driven by your default thoughts. That's why strategy 1 was about leading your thinking. So check in with your thinking around this default action. Then ask yourself this one simple but transformative question. If you were leading yourself through this pattern instead of reacting to it, what would intentional action look like? How would you prepare in advance for those difficult but necessary conversations? How would you shift your relationship with feedback so that it was helpful instead of hurtful? Whatever surfaces for you, write it down so you can anchor the insight and can draw from it the next time the situation arises. This is how you move from reacting to choosing. And the more often that you practice this, linking your thoughts to your actions, the more you do this, the more control you gain over how you show up and the impacts you make. This is how you become the architect of your actions. But this brings us to an important question. What actually deserves deeper thought and intentional action to begin with? Where should you be aiming your efforts? This is where strategy 3, set your priorities, becomes really important. It's a litmus test of sorts that helps you determine what really matters when everything is competing for importance at the same time. You see, setting priorities isn't necessarily about eliminating things that don't matter. It's actually about creating a hierarchy to determine which priorities deserve elevated thought and elevated action. And setting these priorities is actually easier than you might think. First, just write down everything that's on your plate. Get it all onto paper. Then ask yourself, which of these requires my best thinking paired with intentional action, and which of these simply require completion? Don't get me wrong, both matter, but they don't both deserve the same energy. And when you determine which activities do deserve your best thinking and actions, prioritize those tasks during the time of day when you are operating at your best. Don't let those other lower priority activities crowd them out. This is actually a really simple shift to lead yourself through your priorities, but it's a simple shift that will create a massive impact in your end results. Okay, let's zoom out real quick and take a look at what we just did. We explored how to lead your thinking so your assumptions don't quietly run the show, how to architect your actions so you're choosing instead of reacting, and how to set priorities so your best energy goes towards what actually matters most. That, my friend, is self-leadership in action. And that is the competitive advantage that high performers have learned to build. By the way, if you want to lead your thinking even deeper, starting right now, then check out this video right here where I coach you through 3 exercises to instantly boost your self-awareness. And if you want ongoing coach-led support as you build your self-leadership muscle, make sure you're subscribed to this channel, and I will show up every week to support you along the way. That's it for today, my friend. I'll see you in the next video soon.